welcome to the NAESP Principal Podcast. My name is Rachael George, and I'm an education leader in Oregon and also an NAESP fellow.
And my name is Adam Welcome. I'm an educator in California and a fellow with NAESP in the Innovation Center.
Woohoo! Good job. You're getting so slick at that. Hey, Adam and I are just so excited to bring you all this NAESP Principal Podcast so we can legit talk about some real ideas with amazing principals, and in this case, some assistant principals, to help make your leadership stronger and more innovative.
Yeah, Assistant Principal Week is the second week of April. It's like the 3rd to the 7th-ish. I think NASP celebrates it from the 3rd to the 7th. So we are having an AP with us today that is absolutely crushing it in Connecticut. Katie Laird, welcome to the podcast.
My goodness. Thank you so much for having me, Adam and Rachael.
Super duper excited. Everybody go to Twitter right now, unless you are driving, and make sure you follow Katie. It's KB as in boy, Laird, Laird. Katie is just always so positive and energetic in all that she puts out on social media. So make sure you connect and follow Katie. So let's talk about being an assistant principal. What do you enjoy most about being an assistant principal your first year on the job?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think the thing that I enjoy the most is, first of all, I'm blessed to work at Hillcrest Middle School out in Trumbull, Connecticut, which is just full of a vibrant community with the greatest people. I know we hear that all the time on your podcasts, but I truly believe that I'm so blessed to have the greatest staff to work with. As far as the job goes, it is my first year, and it's been incredible to expand my capacity. I think, having come from the high school right in town, where I was the chair of the math department, and that's a large comprehensive high school, I worked with a large department, but so much of what I did focused on the teaching and learning with regard to math specifically. And now I really feel so blessed that the scope is larger. And on a daily basis, I'm working with students directly, conversations about their classes, perhaps about discipline or situations that come up with teachers and teachers in all disciplines. So that's been so great. I think it was something I was a little nervous about, to be honest, but something that I've enjoyed the most, being able to observe teachers in different subject areas and have just great conversations about teaching and learning. That transcends obviously all disciplines and domains. And then, just kind of tapping into all the things that I didn't even quite realize would be under the scope of an AP job, things with operations and maintenance and, working with our central office staff. That's been a real plus too. I was fortunate as the instructional leader at the high school, to participate in kind of professional development and monthly lead and learns. But now there's even more of that collaboration, right? With our, director of digital learning, our assistant superintendent. So that's been great. That's really helped me continue to grow as well.
I love what you said, all the other things. I can remember my first or second day on the job as an assistant principal at an elementary school, K-5, 1,200 students, really big elementary school. They handed me a hard hat, and I'm like, what do I need a hard hat for? But there was a solar panel project happening on the playground. They were doing solar panels, and my principal was like, here you go. You're in charge of I wasn't in charge, but I was like the admin on the ground, and I was like, let's go. Let's do this. Like my mind shifted from classroom and reading assessments to projects on the playground with a hard hat. It's funny how things roll out.
Well, that's funny because in my first month, my principal, Brian, who Adam, we were doing our first fire drill together, and he said, you're going to go pull the fire alarm. And I said, I've never pulled a fire alarm before. And he literally took a video of me during our first fire drill, planned fire drill together. So it's a lot of those little things that, you go through the interview process, you plan and prep for that. And you think of all the ways that you're going to impact your students and your faculty. But there's a lot of those other little things that are equally important.
I loved pulling the fire alarm. And Adam, I'm super excited that you said you got a hard hat, because I thought you were going to get like a spatula or something along those lines to help clean up like body fluid of sorts. So a hard hat, that's a huge win for you. All right, Katie. So you talked about some things that surprised you, but I want to go a little bit deeper. What are some of the things that really shocked you that maybe weren't anticipating were going to be a part of that assistant principal role that perhaps you were pleasantly surprised with, or perhaps you were like, oh, that's me now. And I didn't realize that actually like existed as a need. So what are your thoughts?
Sure. So my thoughts kind of immediately go to just the way that you have to go about your day and be able to respond so quickly in the moment and shift gears. That is definitely something I didn't necessarily, I think I couldn't understand until I stepped into the role. So, I think about how as much, planning and preparation can go into the day or the week, the planning for the month, that things just come up. So, we might go over to central office for a principal's meeting and then come back and there's kids waiting for me and a teacher. And we have to have this conversation about, a circumstance that just happened. And now I got to get to lunch duty. And, I think the need to be able to shift gears so quickly, but at the same time, be so present in the moment with each of those things. That is something that surprised me. I think, I'm pleasantly surprised at being able to handle that. I think obviously my collaboration with my principal, Brian, is definitely something that helps with that. He's been such a great mentor. We've been doing a lot together. So we're very collaborative, but of course I kind of lean toward and look toward his leadership because this is his 10th year as an admin. So, I think that surprised me, but I think, I use a calendar more than I've ever used a calendar in my life. And I hear so many people that you both interview talk about that, but it really is a very helpful strategy. And sometimes things have to shift, but at least, it helps you at the end of a day, then look and prioritize, okay, what can I do tonight? What has to happen first thing in the morning? What has to happen by the end of the day tomorrow, by the end of the week, and so forth.
Well, I'm glad to hear that change and that challenge has been one that you've been able to be nimble with and to be able to accomplish, because that is one area that I've noticed a lot of folks really struggle with when they enter into an administration. So really hats off to you. I, in fact, had like a mentor that said that every day is like Christmas. You never know what you're going to get. Then you kind of unwrap that gift. And I think that's been a saying that's really stayed with me that kind of really resonates with that experience that you've had.
Yeah, I think the shifting of the gears, I've heard that forever. And I'm thinking of like my first car. It was a 1965 Volkswagen Bug, and it had 4 gears. But being an assistant principal is like driving a car with 15 gears, because with 4 gears, it's easy. First, second, third, fourth, and then reverse. But 15, there's so many different things. It's like that constant reprioritization of, okay, come on, AP, come on, Katie, you're going to do this. And then within like 3 seconds, nope, go over there. And you really have to shift all these different places. I think this is a good time to give your principal a shout out, Brian Rickert. Brian is absolutely awesome. I've had Brian on my podcast. Also, I want to point out that Katie is an assistant principal at a middle school. NASP is not just elementary, even though there's not middle school in the name. It's a K-8 organization. So people out there listening, assistant principals of middle schools, you can and should join NAESP because it really is a K-8 organization. So Katie, what advice would you give to aspiring assistant principals out there that are looking for their first admin job?
Sure. This is a great question. I think the first and foremost, the thing I think about is just, diving into anything that you can and taking advantage of every opportunity. I think, I probably always considered myself somewhat of a leader, even when I wasn't in a leadership role per se. I taught math for many, many years and my title was math teacher, but I think writing and revising curriculum, getting certified to be a mentor and mentoring new teachers, taking on cooperating teachers, that was really helpful and insightful and prepared me. I didn't realize it probably at the time, but helped prepare me for sort of the teaching, the supervision and evaluation that would come down the road. Being on school committees, district-wide committees. We have a district-wide professional development and evaluation committee. or I knew early on professional development was something that I really enjoyed. So, I would go to my admin team at the high school and say, I have this great idea. I'd love to present to our department. And then that turned into, the state conference in Connecticut and then NCTM nationally, things like that. So, I think if you're an aspiring leader, anything that you can do, that you can take part in, that your district will support, just ask and get yourself out there, because those experiences really prepare you for when you do have that quote unquote title. And then, I think of it now in my role where I am an AP, Brian and I are constantly involving our leadership team, finding ways that we can chat with them, that we can run ideas by them, and looking to build capacity with them and with teachers. A lot of the conversations we've had recently have been to maybe a team leader. What other teacher could you bring on with you to help, with this idea, with this concept? And that is something that I've enjoyed, being able to do in my current role. But I think back to your question, just taking advantage of every opportunity that you possibly could. And I've been so fortunate in Trumbull that I've had that support, which is great.
Yeah,
Right.
every little opportunity is so important. And at the time, I was talking to somebody recently about this. Those opportunities, they may sound really mundane and boring. And you're like, what am I going to get out of this? I don't want to be the person counting the pencils for the testing group or whatever. But you know what? Count those pencils as best as you can and make sure that they're organized and make sure you have enough and make sure you have backup. And obviously, counting pencils is kind of a thing of the past with online assessment. But you're going to look back in 3 or 5 years and really go, hey, this was valuable for what I'm doing right now. So I think that point of like doing it to the best and just 100% and with energy and excitement is just super important.
So I want to take it kind of to a female leader perspective. So exactly what you said is advice that I recommend to people, female, males across the board. But one of the interesting components from a female leader perspective is oftentimes some of the response I get back is that, hey, Rachael, that's awesome, but I'm trying to balance kids' sports, dinner, evening events, like supervision, like there's that second shift of home, right? Or there's the other aspect of like if I'm going to do that and give up time with my family, how am I compensated? And it's been a fascinating conversation of like, it pays off in the end. But I'm curious, Katie, how did you navigate that? Because I know you have kids, I know you have a family, you're really active. You're going to get off this podcast and go do a bunch of other stuff today on a Saturday. So how did you balance getting all those experiences, taking advantage of those opportunities, but still having a full personal and professional life?
Great question. I'm definitely still learning and still navigating, especially this first year in a new role. First and foremost, I have a wonderful, supportive husband. So, that really has made the biggest difference. He's always encouraged me, always supported me, even when I was thinking of this job, the job that I currently have last spring. That was the first conversation we had. I said, I'm a mom and a wife, and I just want to make sure that I can still be there we have 3 kids. They're 12, 10, and 5. So we are like in the trenches with activities and all the goods that come with them. And my oldest was starting middle school this year. So we were just navigating a lot. And he said, you can do it. We can do it. You've got to go for this. Like this is something that you just have to do. I think I also have like the great fortune of teaming up with an awesome principal. He's a dad himself with 3 kids as well. And, I think it's all the planning and the preparation that just sets up the week. We tag team, we try to attend a lot of things together with school, but sometimes we'll split if, he always says, I don't want you missing, Jack's concert. That's so important for you to be there as his mom. So it is a really good question. I'm certainly not perfect at it. One thing that, and I know Adam's a big get up and run guy. One thing that's helped me so much has been to get up early. I've done this for a couple of years now, but I find it this year has been just monumental. I get up quite early, like 4 o'clock in the morning. I get up, I go for a workout. get all of that done. And it really gives me, honestly, I think the energy I need for the day and sets that really positive tone. And then, once I'm done with my, and quote unquote done, but my school day, then I shift gears. I come right home and it's, what practice do we have? What game do we have? All those things, but I can really be committed because I've gotten up, I've done something healthy for myself, had a really great school day. And now I focus on being mom. And then once bedtime hits, sometimes it's work again for me. And honestly, sometimes I grab a book and sit down and read a little bit and kind of decompress and then, get some good sleep, because that's, super important as well to be able to manage all of these things.
Well, you know that I am part of the 4 a.m. club. I think it's the best time of the day just to get up and get a lot of stuff done. So let's say, Katie, you're talking to 1,000 teachers. You have a big auditorium and you have the microphone. What would you say to all those 1,000 teachers about why they should think about or get into administration and being an assistant principal? I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions out there about the job. I mean, you've already talked about the shifting of the gears and all the different things. But I remember my days as an assistant principal, and it was so much fun. And it just led to so many other opportunities. Rachael and I talked to a lot of directors of personnel and human resources, and they say the number of people that are applying for assistant principal jobs has gone down. So what would you say to all the people listening that are maybe still in the classroom, maybe an instructional coach, and they're kind of creeping to that next step? Why should they become an assistant principal?
Sure. I think just the greater impact that you can have and the more capacity, you're building your own capacity, you're growing in so many ways, but now it's just the impact that you could have expands exponentially, right? So, in our middle school, you might have 100 to 120 students per day, and you're doing this great work, and you're affecting, no doubt, each of those kids. But you might have some great conversations with your grade level partner, your department, and you're discussing ideas, and those kind of have a ripple effect for sure. But when you step into something that involves more leadership, and you might be a team leader or you might oversee a department, it just grows, right? So I think being able to expand your capacity, and, everybody loves to share the great things that they do. But when you have a greater audience, it just has a greater ripple effect. So we actually had a conversation with a staff member just recently, actually a few we've been sprinkling in here and there, who are saying, I might want to, step into this role, or I've been thinking about how I could do this in the future. And it's interesting to hear some of them say, I was thinking I might have to go back to school for this certificate or this. And of course, both of us are saying, hey, have you thought about ed leadership? Because if you want a role like that, this would be great, not just the coursework, but, having that ability, that certificate to be able to step into a role if the opportunity presents itself would be great. So I think just that impact is the word that comes to my mind first, stepping outside of your students in the classroom to now a whole department or a whole team or a whole district, depending on your role.
Well, I think one of the most important things, Katie, is having assistant principals like you who obviously enjoy their job, come with energy, come with excitement, have a family and a life, and approach that in a way where you're a hard worker, but you're not a workaholic, and you can do all the things. So everybody out there, make sure you're hiring the right people so you have people in those jobs. It's the same for teachers. We want teachers to have excitement and energy so kids grow up remembering those teachers, and then them thinking, I want to be a teacher because I love my teachers. But if they're coming all grumpy and frumpy and like, rah, 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 they don't like their job, like that historical maybe, then people aren't going to want to do that. You have to have that good model, even for teachers that are wanting to maybe get into administration. So I think that is a huge part of it. Hire the right people.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Grumpy and frumpy. That's going to be what's taking the rest of the day. That's funny. Katie, so what's your favorite leadership book? I'm sure you have one. Adam and I love to read, and I was kind of stalking your Twitter account, and you have some books that you've posted on there. What are you reading, or perhaps what's your favorite?
So I'm currently reading When Kids Lead by Todd Neslony and Adam DeVico, and really liking that. I like the learner, the nature of the learner-centered, like student-centered book. It reminds me of Kids Deserve It, which is another one of my favorites. So that's what I'm currently reading. And what I'm loving about that book is, as many conversations as I'm having with Brian, my principal, where we read a lot of these books together, I'm having at home with my own kids. So I'm like, hey, just read about this new acronym. Do you know how to shake hands when you meet somebody first? So that's been great. I think, my overall favorite leadership book is probably Lead From Where You Are by Joe Sanfilippo. He is another one of those, like, oh my goodness, if I ever had the chance to sit and talk with him, I would just be amazed. I was gifted that book last spring, actually from Brian, before I even applied for this role. Just we knew each other as coworkers and leaders in the district. And I think that book talking so much about like intentionality and building connections and like the overall importance of building relationships, how that is like at the forefront and the head of everything. That book kind of is one of the standouts for me.
Really good books. Hey, after the show, send me your address. I'll send you a copy of She Leads too. So navigating.
I would love to read that.
The learning curve for women. Yeah.
I was just thinking, Rachael, you should send her your book. So I'm glad that happened. Katie Laird, middle school assistant principal, KB as in Boyd Laird on Twitter. Assistant Principal Week across the country, featuring Katie this week on the NAESP Principal Podcast. We're going to have you back in 2, 3, 4 years when you get that principal job to talk about that. Or maybe next year. I don't know, Brian. Not trying to take Katie anywhere, but you never know. When you have awesome people like you, they get plucked for those principal jobs very, very quickly. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Everybody listening, thanks for all you do. Happy Assistant Principal Week. And Rachael and I hope that you have an absolutely amazing day.